Hello everybody, welcome back to my Design With Me series. This is part 2 and I'm going to apologize in advance because I am filming early in the morning, which is crazy time for my kittens, and they are running around like mad, so you may hear them in the background. So we're going to go back. If you remember in the first episode we looked at this Moonchild paper from Prima. This is the paper that I'm going to use for the project, and we'd pretty much narrowed down that we were going to use either this or this to determine the book size, and I have decided I'm going to use this. So I'm going to be making, see what I mean? What was that? Oh, that was one of my books, just got thrown on the floor. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to use this. So this is going to determine the book. So I'm measuring this. Let me get this out of the way. So measuring this. This measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, give or take. So I am going to make a cover that is 4 3/4 by 5 3/4. That will leave me room for matting, double matting, any other sort of space I want around this on the cover. And that means my pages, and I've cut my chipboard, so here's my chipboard. I like my pages slightly shorter. So in this case, my pages are going to be 4 1/2 by 5 1/2. Now, what you may have noticed there is that this leaves me 1/4 of an inch here, which means 1/8 of an inch top to bottom. But when I put the pages in, they're going to be right up against the spine. So I've got 1/4 of an inch here. So I've got a bigger space on the end, but that's okay because I like to use side pocket inserts and tabs and things that stick out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to have 1/4 of an inch extra here and 1/8 top and bottom, and it'll be flush here. And I did already cut 2 pieces of chipboard for the covers. I have not yet cut the spine because I haven't decided yet the pages and number of pages and that sort of thing, and we're going to work on that today. So here is the paper. Again, this is the paper that we're going to use. So one of the first decisions that I have to make, and I've already made it off screen, is what am I going to use for cardstock? And do I have it? I thought I had some sheets out. Here we are. So I am going to use my favorite artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations in navy. This is one of my absolute, favorite it's my favorite cardstock anyway, the artisan, and the navy is one of my favorites. I could have used black, but I think it would have been too harsh with this. Let me see if I have a scrap of the black so you can see. It's just a tiny little scrap, but it just doesn't go. And I really didn't want to use anything light. I like the drama of this paper against a dark, so to me the navy was just it. That was the color. If you have a dark purple cardstock, that would look nice, but I think for me this is fine. So we're going to use Moonchild with navy. Set that aside. All right, now this is some cheap white cardstock, and we're going to use this to design our pages. Sometimes I know exactly what I'm going to do, especially if it's like a 6x6 or something like that. I have a way of making those pages that I know works. But because this size, 4 1/2 by 5 1/2, let me write that down so we all see. By 5 1/2. Now I could make, there's a number of ways I could make it, but I kind of want to make it the way I usually do my 6x6s. And that is, let me see, do I have, I'm looking to see if I have a sample of that on my desk, and I don't. But the way that works is you fold your paper in quarters this way and then this way, and then you make a cut and you fold it in such a way as to form a page. And I like that method. And I'm going to try and do it for this method, but it's not going to be a square. So what I'm going to do is start with, if I'm going to end up with 5.5, I need a piece of paper that's double that size, right? So 5.5 doubled would be 11. So I'd need an 11-inch square to end up with 5.5. So first off, we're going to start with that. I'm going to cut this down to 11. And I strongly encourage you to go to your craft store or even your local big box and purchase a package of cheap cardstock for doing these sort of rough practice steps. Okay, and I'm not going to score or anything. We're just going to eyeball that. Okay, so if I cut that in half, and then, actually, you know what? I'm just going to do it this way. Fold it in half, and then fold it in half again. Grab some scissors. We will take our scissors. Here, let me draw a line so you can see. Okay, we're going to cut there. You could use a paper cutter for this, but of course this is just our test piece. And you're only going to cut to the center to where I ended that line. If you've done many of my other albums or Ginger Rop's album, I don't know how she says her name. Ginger from My Sister Scrapper uses this technique. Okay, so now we have this. And we're going to fold it in half and then fold this and fold this. And this gives you a page that is still open on the bottom, but we can close that. Actually, hang on, it goes like that. So you have a fold at the top, you have 2 pages and an opening at the bottom. And we know that this is going to be 1 inch too big because we want, yeah, it's 5.5, but we want it to be 4.5. This 5.5 is fine. So if I take 1 inch off of this side, right? So I want to take that inch off and this inch. What is that going to leave us? Right, so we want to lose that. We want to lose that. Let's open it up. So we want to lose 1 inch here and 1 inch here. Okay, so that's pretty clear. So that means we need a piece that is 11, and that was 1 inch here and 1 inch here. That's 2 inches by 9, right? And that makes sense because half of 9 is 4.5. You see where we're going here? So now, let's go ahead and cut. I'm just going to fold this in half and cut 1 inch off. Okay. All right, so now, let me show you again. So I folded it like this, so I've got my cut edge and my folded edge. Cut off 1 inch. And now I'm going to fold it the same way I did before. So I'm going to fold it towards that cut, and then I'm going to fold the cuts down. All right, so now we have a folded finished edge. We have a page. We have another page with an opening and a page. We're going to close this bottom opening, and this on the side is going to be where it goes into the spine. Right? So we have 1, 2, 3. right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4. But this actually gives us 6 sides to work with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you get a lot of places to put paper and decorate and whatnot from this style of page. You don't need a lot of pages as a result. So I'm going to go with 3 pages. And I'm going to grab the last album that I did. Let's see if I have it handy. Hang on one second. Okay, this album has only 3 pages, but you can see it's still pretty chunky. And a fairly decent sized spine. This one is 6 by 6, so ours is going to be smaller, but we're using the same number and type of pages. So I'm going to use this one as an idea. I made a 2-inch spine, and I did very little in the way of additional embellishments, such as flowers and whatnot. I'm tempted to go just a hair more. Maybe 2 1/4 on this next one. And let's see, and this is how I work. I'm just going to measure another album because I can't remember exactly what I did, but I think I did a 3/8 inch gap. Okay, so let's see. I just made this album too. You'd think I could remember. All right, so now we're back to our scrap. Grab one of those pieces that we just cut off, right? And if I do 3/8 of an inch from the edge and then a page, and then from there 3/8, whoops, hang on, 3/8 of an inch and a page, 3/8 of an inch and a page, and then 3/8. I think I may go bigger. I may go to, do I want to go a full 1/2 inch? That's a lot of space. Let's play with that. Let's think about that for a minute. So let's take a 2 1/4 inch spine. Can you see? I'm going to do, this is how I always work. I just play with things until I get a look that I like. That's a pretty wide spine for a small book. No, I think we're going to stick with the 2-inch spine just like we did before. Okay, so we're going to go with a 2-inch spine and a 3/8 inch gusset between the pages. All right, so that means I need a spine out of cardstock that is 4 3/4 by 2. And I can write it on here because this is going to get covered. Okay, I don't need to cut that right away. But, all right, so this we determined was 11. Open that up again and we'll write down the measurements. Is 11 by 9, right? 9. Now, if you could manage to make your book just a little smaller, then you could use 8.5 by 11 cardstock and not have any waste at all. Just use a single 8.5 by 11 sheet. And then you would just end up with a book that's just 1/4 inch narrower. And normally I would say I'm fine with that, but I just want to give myself a little more play than that. So 11 by 9, I'm going to need 3 sheets. Right? Here, let's use our scrap. We're going to need 2 chipboard that are, what did I say? 4 3/4 by 5 3/4. We're going to need 1 chipboard that is 4 3/4 by 2 for the spine. All right, then you're going to need 3 cardstock that are 11 by 9. All right, now we're going to need more cardstock than that, obviously, to make some extra things, pockets and whatnot. But this is what we need to get started. Plus, you're going to need cardstock to cover the chipboard, and that'll be, we can get away with 1 sheet. So you're going to need 1 sheet of cardstock. I think we can get away with 1 sheet to cover the covers. All right. So this is what we need to get started. I am going to go ahead and cut my spine and my cardstock to size, and I will be right back. Okay, I've cut everything, and I'm going to start with cover because I dislike doing that the most, so I like to get it out of the way first. So I just took a piece of 12 by 12 and cut it in half. Okay, then we're going to seam it together in the middle and lay out our pieces. And normally I like a full inch. This is going to be smaller, but I'm okay with that rather than cut a whole other sheet of cardstock. And then we're going to have a fair bit to cut off on either end, but we'll be able to use that. Okay, so let's first off do this, and I am going to use art glitter glue. I used to use score tape for this, but I feel like I get more flex out of the art glitter glue. So just run a very narrow piece, or either tape or art glitter glue, whatever you like, along one piece, and then just, I like to put one piece along a line on my mat. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I like it at least reasonably straight. And then put this piece on the same line, just overlapping that glue just a tiny bit. There. And take a dry baby wipe and just burnish that down really well. Anything that seeps out will dry clear, but you do want to keep it fairly clean. Okay, just like that. Now, I like to center the seam on my spine. If you are okay centering it on, or putting it on the back or the front, you could do this. It would be centered pretty much on this back piece, and then you'd have this whole piece to work with. And I know it's a waste the way I do it, but that's the way I do it. So, all right, now let me get some score tape. All right, so I'm going to put this score tape. I don't think I mentioned this artisan cardstock. You can get it at Country Craft Creations. I'm sure there are other excellent cardstocks, but this is my favorite. It's the only one I use for the most part, unless I can't get the color I want. They don't make pink. Just saying. Okay, so now, and I'm sorry I cut my score tape. I know most people tear it, but I just don't seem able to get a good tear, so I cut it with scissors. Okay, this is the 1 inch. You can use whatever. They make a full sheet, but I don't have any of it. I'm just gonna trim a little where I was a little long. And you want to burnish your score tape. I always start with my spine. I know, I don't know, just because I want to make sure it's centered. So I think some people start with this, one of the, either the front or the back, but I always start with the spine. Okay, now they overlapped a little bit, so I pulled out the bottom one first, and then I'm finishing the top one. Just like that. Now this is 2 inches wide. Out of the way. So we want the seam relatively close to the 1 inch mark. Remember, there's an overlap here, so it's not going to be exact. So and you want to leave about the same amount top and bottom. I'm just eyeballing it, honestly. leave. I think I didn't leave myself enough on the bottom. Well, that's the way it's going to be. Okay. And burnish that. Okay, now for the bigger pieces, do not forget that they go like this. Well, you won't, because this is pretty short. I have been known if I left myself too much paper to put my, pardon me, to put my front and back on sideways. Actually, to do the whole thing sideways, just forget and make it vertical. All right, now I need a piece of 1/4 inch score tape. And we're just going to run the 1/4 inch score tape right along the side of the spine. That's going to determine the spacing there. Sorry, these scissors are absolutely cruddy. I need to clean them. And another one here. And you don't have to make it the exact same length. It can be a hair shorter. That's fine. You just need to make sure it's long enough to act as a guide. Okay, so now we have these two pieces, and I am going to use my 3/8 inch score tape. Again, this is simply my preference. You can attach these down however you like. And I'm just going to put this around the perimeter of both pieces. So now these are going to go like that. Let me get my scissors out of the way. And to actually glue these down, I am using Fabri-Tac. This stuff works really well. However, it really smells, so just be aware of that if you have an issue. And I don't like things with a strong odor, but I put up with it for this. All right, I'm taking the back of my tape off, and I'm trying to remember to put it straight into the trash can that I have behind me, because my kittens like to play with it. Okay. And now I am just going to use this in the center where I did not have score tape. And be generous, but not, don't soak it. Okay. Cover it immediately. Okay. And then this, where's my ruler? I am just laying the ruler up against the spine to try and make sure it's straight, and then butting this up against the tape. Just like that. Okay. All right. Okay. Put that there. And put the ruler down. And there we go. Just like that. Okay. And tip it over and really give it a good brush. All right, now we need to trim this down. You can eyeball it. I am going to measure. I've got about a 1/2 inch all the way around. I'm just going to make a 1/2 inch mark and cut that off with my scissors. Okay. Again, I'm just being, not being perfect on this line. You can see it's kind of wonky, but that's okay. It's just giving me a close approximation of what I need. It's all going to be covered when this is matted and whatnot. There. Okay, save those, they're good sized pieces. We'll be able to use them. And actually, we'll probably use one right here. All right, so the first thing to do is to wrap this cover. Then we'll deal with the spine area. So we need to cut. Now, let me get something I can put it with here. Some people just cut here like this to make their corner, and I think that probably works really well, but I've not tried it yet, and I'm not inclined to have the first time I do try it be on camera. So what I'm going to do is my usual diagonal cut across the corner, leaving the width of your chipboard so that you don't have anything showing. And I'm a little generous with that, and if it's too much I can always trim it later, but I would rather leave too much than not enough. Okay, and I'm pretty sure I left way too much on most of those, but that's okay. Like I said, you can't put it back once it's off. All right, then you're just going to lift and fold. Take your, this is a pretty small book, so it's not too hard to do the lift and fold thing. And then get everything well burnished. And that shows me that I really do have too much on these corners, so I'm going to go ahead and trim them, but for now let me just go ahead and fold the other side as well. That corner looks pretty good. Let me just trim a little bit more. There. It doesn't need too much taken off, just a little bit. They make a tool for this that'll show you exactly how much to cut off. I don't have it, however. I think it's called a magic corner or something like that. Okay, let's see. And now we want to do the same for the ends. Pardon me. Whoops. Pardon me if I get too close to you there. There we go. Move that out of the way for now. All right, you just want to get the paper trained in the way you want it to go. Make it easier. Okay, now this is fairly narrow because I did not leave the amount I usually do. So I'm going to use, normally I would use 3/8 inch score tape for this step, but because I have a pretty narrow overlap, and you will too, unless you use 2 sheets of paper. So I'm using 1/4 inch. And I'm going to put tape all the way around the perimeter of both the cardstock and the chipboard. Again, please excuse the fact that I'm using these nasty scissors to cut my score tape. When I try to rip score tape, generally it just stretches instead of ripping. So if I ever get into a retreat or something with someone skilled in tearing their score tape, please show me how to do it. Now, let's see, we need to do the same thing. I just cut the tape at an angle there. You could have taped this before you cut your angles, but I don't know. And I know I should, but I never do. I always wait. I just have my own little routine that I follow. Okay. Now, if you watched my last series, which was the Stamperia Voyage Fantastique album, the one that I showed you earlier when we were measuring, you'll see that this first part of making the album is very similar. In fact, the entire album may be very similar. but hopefully it will look different in the end. I find after a while you get certain techniques and you stick with them, and I have a few, and this is one of my favorites. I feel like you always end up with a nice looking album without a whole lot of drama. Okay, so now I like to do a long side first. I'm just going to pull this, and we're going to pull this, and we need to pull the sides. Whoops, those over there, I got to put those in the trash. And we also need to get those middle pieces out, which I will grab a pointy tool to do. Just be careful if you're using something really pointy, don't push it right through the paper. That would certainly not be fun. Okay, there we go. Forgot that one. Alright, now I'm just going to tip up and over, just like before, and then I'm going to use my bone folder to really get it tight up against the edge and then tip it over. Okay, you want this nice and firm up against this, the chipboard. Now, one thing you can do that I did not do, and I might do it on the other three sides, it's not something I do every time, is you can run a bead of art glitter glue along that edge, and I think I will do it on this side just to show you. It's one of those things, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. But if you want, you just take your art glitter glue and just run a thin bead there. Okay. And then again, we're going to just tip it over. Burnish it really well along that edge. Just want a nice crisp edge. Whoop. Okay, now I'm going to do the two ends. And again, if we want, we can do our little bead of our glitter glue. Right. And tip that up and over. That really well. Oop, I forgot to tuck in my corners. Well, that's all right. On this one, it doesn't seem to be an issue, but I will show you how you should do it on this one. And that is take a tool or your fingers and just tip in. Can you see that? The little bits of extra paper there on the corners. Okay. And I can see I've got a little chatty thing hanging out there. Let's see if I can fix that. Okay. And just tip that over like that. And you can see here I've got this little thing sticking out, and that's because I didn't fold in my corner. But it looks fine from the outside, and I think I can just sort of burnish it over and it'll be fine. Just like that. Okay, so there's our cover. And then we want to just gently, gently press down here. And because this is artisan cardstock, you can be a little more aggressive with the bending. If you're using something else, be careful. Okay, so that's going to be our cover. Now, I don't worry about these areas. They're going to get covered anyway when I mat. However, I do want to cover the spine area. So this is one of the scraps that we just had. And I am just going to cut this to size. And the size is going to be the height of the spine. Okay, so let me get, where's our little sample? Okay, so here's our sample page. It's gonna sit here, right? So you want this piece to be this height, which I believe we said was 4.5, right? 4.5. Because that's gonna help guide putting the actual binding in the book. So cut this to 4.5. The width doesn't matter that much. You just want it to cover, you know, probably 1 inch on either side, give or take. This is 4.5 inches high, and that's fine. And we're just going to center it over this. Now, I'm going to use tape again. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a piece of score tape right along that edge. Now notice I'm not really going past, what on earth is that is stuck on there? Piece of wire. I got to clean these scissors. Okay, I'm not really going very far past where the paper folds over, because I'm going to put tape on the other piece, and that'll take care of that. Okay. Now, there's that. And then this piece is not quite a full inch, so rather than use that 1 inch score tape, I'm going to use the 3/8 inch score tape and put it right here. Then we're going to put tape all around this piece, so you can see. Find the end of the tape would be all set. There we go. Okay. Now, varnish this. I'm not putting glue in the middle because the middle is being taken by all that tape. All right, so now let's take the tape off. Oops. Okay. Now I'm going to measure. So this is the 4.5. I'll double check that before I put it down. I want to make sure I don't put this piece in sideways. Okay. 4.5 by 4.25. Actually, I am tempted. I'm tempted to make this 4.25. I told you to cut it 4.5, but I'm tempted because this is 4.25, right? A little over 4.25, because I like to make my spine just a little bit short to make it easier to put the book together. I'm going to do that. So cut yours 4.25 high, and then we're going to center that side to side and top to bottom. Just everything's very sticky, so just try not to let it go down before you're sure it's where you want it. I just barely dropped that to give myself a little play. There we go. All right. So this is 4.25 top to bottom. And I didn't put it on very straight, but it's straight enough. Okay. Again, very gently, very, very gently burnish in there. Wow, I really didn't get that straight at all. It's bad up there though. You know what, this is the side I probably cut. But that's all right, because this is really not going to be visible when the book is done, so nobody will ever know. All right, so gently, taking your time. Do not put your burnishing tool through the paper. I have done that, and after all this work right at the very end, it's so annoying. All right. Take your time with this. Don't rush it. You don't want to have to make this thing again. Maybe some people love making covers. I really do not. That's one reason I almost always do them first, just to get it out of the way, so I don't have that to look forward to at the end. Okay, there we go. And then gently wiggle and wiggle and wiggle. You want some nice flex in your book. Burnish it a little on this side, gently lift just a little bit, just to really give the book plenty of flex. There we go. All right, there's our cover. And I think that we're going to stop right there. Oh no, let's make our pages. Let's make our, at least get them folded. And we'll finish them up next time. No, you know what? Let's stop here and I'll come back and we'll make the pages and the binding, okay? So thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I promise I'll clean my scissors before the next time that we meet. And next time we will get the pages made and into the book. All right? Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thank you. Bye.